Well, hello YouTube, this is Chuck, and this is our next saga in fixing the brakes on the old fire truck. And when I left you last time, we had the brake shoes there were hanging down, and there's the remnants of the broken spring right there. There's 3 pieces of it there, and where it used to go is it used to go from here across to there. Well, with the shoes swung around and hanging down like that, it started pushing the innards out of the wheel cylinder here. So in order to fix that, I had to put it all back together, and I got it held in place with a clamp, a furniture clamp, or a wood product clamp, and so that's holding it where it's supposed to be for right now until I can figure out a place to get that spring. Now, as you can well imagine, this is an 80-some-year-old vehicle, and those springs are not readily available. I checked yesterday of all the normal places that I would go where I thought they might have them, and nobody seems to have them. So what that means, I'm going to have to find something similar that might work. And that's going to take me a little bit of detective work. But in order to do that, what I want to do is I want to take the one off the other side. So let's go over there. We're in the sun over here, so the light will be a little bit better. So now I got to take this wheel off. Oh, my shadow's in the way. I got to take that wheel off and pull that drum off as well, and get that. See if that spring is intact. If that spring's intact, I can remove it. And if I remove that spring, then I've got something to take with me, so I can go down to the parts store and see if I can figure out something that I can make work. So I've got this jack back up again. I got to break the wheel lug nuts loose, and I'm going to remove that wheel, and that's what's going to be next. Going to get me dirty, so I'm not going to try to put you on a tripod this time. I'll just show you what's going on when I get it apart. Okay, I got this side apart. This is the right front. And it came apart a whole lot easier than the other side did, because as you can see, that where that broken spring is, this is the spring that was broke on the other side. This one's still intact. And so that's what I'm going to have to replace. Now this one came with its own set of problems. Number one is the wheel over there was rusted to the hub to the point where it didn't want to come off. I had to spray it with penetrating oil and bang on it with my trusty BFH for a little bit before it finally come loose enough where I could even get it apart. The other thing was this wheel bearing here was pretty loose too, disturbingly so. So that needed to be taken care of as well. But as you can see, that's intact, including the little dead spider over there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a clamp on this side to hold it all together, just like I did on the other side. And then I'm going to remove that spring. And then, got a loud truck going by, sorry about that. I don't even know what that is. Just a pickup truck with a straight pipe. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to take that spring off so I can try to go over to the auto parts store and see if they've got anything that I can possibly modify to make work to replace that. But in the meantime, I don't want those brake shoes to swing down like they did on the other side, because what happens is that allows the wheel cylinder here to start pushing itself apart. And I had a little trouble getting all that back together, so I'm going to try to keep that thing intact the way it is right there. The other issue I got on this one, it's a little different than the other one, is you notice how much brake material there is here. Now, obviously, if by looking at that, you can see there's some leakage into that brake drum. It's probably good enough for a parade truck. I wouldn't want to trust it hauling a heavy load down a hill, but for a parade truck that never gets over about 20 miles an hour, I'm sure it's probably fine. But the other side, because this thing was broke and these had swung out, is the tops of these things are worn almost down to the metal. Now, let me show you what I mean over there. Walk back over to this side. I don't know how long that, let's see what a little bit of material there is left here. There's not much here at all. And this side here is okay, but this side here, you can tell it's been rubbing on the inside of that drum for a long time. I don't know how long that spring had been broken, but it had been broken for a while. So anyway, my next step is try to get that spring out of there and go see if I can find another one. I'll be back as soon as I got something to show you. Well, that wasn't too bad at all. With a pair of vice grips and a little bit of redneck leverage, I was able to get that thing right off. And I took it in we actually got a solvent tank here in my shed, and I took and cleaned it up, and that's what it looks like now. There you go, see if you can take a look at it. And that thing, you know, that's probably as old as the truck is, so it's probably going to fail before too awful long. So, but it gives me a sample, and so I can go over to the auto parts store and see if I can find something from some other application that'll work for this. And so that's going to be my next challenge. So far, today's gone a lot smoother than yesterday has, and I certainly do appreciate that. So I'll be back with you here again as soon as I got something to show you. Well, we're back. And by golly, it's been a few days since last segment. And let me tell you what happened. I got that spring apart and went over to the local auto parts supply, and I kind of thought we might have a problem finding those, and I was right, we did. And so the local Napa store didn't have it, and I knew the chain outfits wouldn't, but they didn't have it in their book anymore. Their books didn't go that far back. So went back to an online search, and I found a place that had restoration parts for restoring old cars, and struck out there they didn't have the right spring. And so I was kind of looking for one. I made a mention in my community page, and a couple of things that happened. First of all, a viewer and friend of mine, a fellow named Renee, he goes by the screen name of Skidder Operator, and lives up in Washington. And if you don't know what a skidder is, a skidder's he works in the logging industry, and the skidder machine is a big old four-wheel thing that picks the logs up and drags them from the forest out to where they can be loaded onto a truck. It has like a grappler on one end of it, and picks one end of the log up and it drags it, and they call it skidding. Well, he runs one of those, and he fights fires. But anyway, he went on a Google search, and he immediately found the right place for me to go. And I thought it was kind of funny, and let me tell you that story, is that when I went on Google, I typed in old Chevrolet truck parts. And it took me to various websites, and I started researching that. And well, when he Googled, he went on old Chevy truck parts. Instead of Chevrolet, he typed in Chevy. Took him right directly to the right spot. So that was pretty amazing. I'd have probably found it eventually, but he did give me a hand on that. And Renee, I appreciate it. Thank you. Give you a shout out. And anyway, the place where it led me to was a place called Jim Carter Truck Parts. And if you type in oldchevytruckparts.org, it'll take you right to it. It's located in Independence, Missouri, and which is just outside of Kansas City. And anyway, they had exactly what I needed. But it took me a day or so to figure all that out. And of course, once I ordered the parts, it took a day or so for them to get there. So the last segment was actually shot on Tuesday, October 22nd. And right now it's Sunday, October 27th. And it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I had some stuff to do this morning, so I got that all taken care of and grabbed a quick nap. And now I'm out here ready to work. But let me show you what we got here. Pretty cool. First of all, over here, there's a piece of that broken spring. I showed that to you before. That's the spring I took off the other side, so that's the other original one. And looky here, I got two brand new ones from Jim Carter Truck Parts. They sent me a catalog as well, and this is for 1934 through 1946 Chevrolet trucks. Is that cool or what? So give them a shout out, and I'm going to go ahead and try to put that spring in here and see if I can get her done. And I'm going to try to take you with me as much as I can. Now, I'm going to have to pack those wheel bearings, and the only way to do that, let me get back around here and talk to you. I'm going to show you what I can of this, but the only way I can pack those wheel bearings or move the grease around is with my bare hands, because that's just the way it's done. And so I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to be able to bring you, but I'm going to try to show you what I can and try not to get it too lengthy. So let me go over here and put you on my stand, by the way, is a bucket. on a little tripod. And so let me get you zoomed in here on what we're looking at. Right there. Okay, now let me grab one of those springs. I'm going to take the tag off of it here. So give me a second while I do that. Here, I can bring you around and show you while I'm doing that. You probably don't really have to take that label off, but somehow it just seems like the right thing to do. There we go. Okay, brand new spring for an 81-year-old truck. Is that cool or what? So let's, I got labels stuck all to my fingers here. I'm trying to get it off camera. Y'all remember the old Snoopy comics, and remember the Charlie Brown, remember Pigpen? Seems like Pigpen could never even walk past anything without getting dirty. Well, I'm kind of a lot like that. It seems like every time I try to do something, I get all dirty. So this is how we're gonna do it. Okay, I'm gonna hook one side into here, like that, and then I'm gonna see if I can stretch this thing out with a little bit of luck. Holy cow, this might be a chore. Got to stretch this thing out enough to hook it into there. I didn't have that much trouble getting the old one out, but of course this one's brand new. This is going to be a challenge. I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and, let me just go ahead and turn you off, because this might take a little bit of time to, I think I know a way, but it might take a little bit of time. So I think I'm going to, I can't get the thing back off again. There it is. So I'm going to turn you off, and I'll come back with you in a little bit here. Okay, I'm back, and I got it. As you can see, there's a spring hook from there to there. That's where it's supposed to be. But it wasn't easy, and I had quite a bit of problem with it. So let me tell you what happened. First of all, and this, you folks from Jim Carter Truck Parts, if you're watching this, let me give you a heads up. Is the very first thing that happened is, see where this little thing looks like the head of a nail's in there? And this thing here is curled down to keep that from coming out. Well, the first thing is this is not adequate. So when I started to try to put that spring on there, I pulled this center part clear out. So I ended up having to go over to my bench vise and ended up having to scrunch this down on both ends here to make that opening smaller, so the head, that's kind of like the head of a nail, so that head thing wouldn't come out of there. That was the first thing that happened. Then the second thing that happened is I just couldn't get enough stretch on that to get it to stretch into place. And no matter what I did, and I tried tightening this a little tighter, that wouldn't work. So I went up and I backed off these things and made this thing here as tight as I could possibly get it. And that gained me about maybe ½ an inch possibly. Then what I ended up doing is I ended up using a pair of channel locks, and you grab a hold of that right there, and then I use these big, or the vice grips I should say, to grab a hold of that right there, and then use this big pair of channel locks like this to pull the whole assembly over into place. It was kind of a grunt job. I put my gloves on so I wouldn't tear my hands up. So I got it. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to take you along because you can see how it happened. But the spring's in there now. It's holding everything in place. I can take my clamp off. And by the way, if you end up using these type of clamps for this, they're real fussy about it. You can't leave any grease on them. So I'm going to set these aside, and when I get all done, I'm going to make sure and clean all that grease off of there and take some acetone and get all the last little remnants of any lubricant off of there, because otherwise this clamp won't work next time I want to use it. But they work good. This is not what they're designed for, but they work good to do what I had to do. So I'm gonna shut you off again while I do all this, and then I'll bring you back when I got something to show you. Well, I got the right front, and this one fought me even harder than the other side. So I'm getting ready to pop it into place, but let me show you what I ended up doing first. Now, this is probably not a mechanic approved way of doing things, but basically I put one pair of vice grips on the spring. I put another pair of vice grips over the brake shoe to hold the C-clamp in place. And then I tightened the C-clamp up to get that spring to stretch. I had a heck of a time. It fought me every single step of the way, but I think I got it now. The only thing I need to do now is give it a little tap with a hammer to pop it into place. And I think that'll get her done. So let me see if I can do that here on the air. Just give it a little. There it is. Now I can take everything off, and there's my C-clamp. There's one pair of channel locks. You can see I skinned up the brake shoe a little bit in the process here. I don't think I hurt anything. I may have to use two hands to get that. There we go. All right, there I got it. You saw it as I did it. So now I can take this off and let everything sit there a little bit, and then I got to adjust those shoes back out to where they were so they fit the brake drums. Then I can put the brake drums on. In the meantime, like I say, the old thing fought me, and I had to tighten up the little ends on those springs to keep the center parts from coming out. And but I got it both. We're making progress. It's taking like 3 times as long as it ought to, and then filming it takes longer. But that's all right. We'll get her done. So I'll be back with you again here in just a couple minutes, as soon as I got something more to show you. I'm trying to do things and hold the camera at the same time, which is why the camera's moving all around. Be back in a minute. Now I'm back. I had to make a quick run to the store, pick up some supplies. Realized I didn't have any brake cleaner. There's a couple things I want to do before I put this back together, and one of them is I want to blow any debris off of You may notice if you look down at that drum, there's this has been leaking a little bit in there. I think I should probably actually replace these wheel cylinders, and I'll have to go back and do that another time. But I think they've been leaking a little bit of brake fluid, and that's what all this is in here. And there's also a little bit on the brake shoes and a little bit in the brake drum. So what I'm going to do with that is I got a little bit of old piece of sandpaper here, and I'm just going to rough these up a little bit to break the glaze. Don't have to do much, you just got to break that surface glaze. You notice I'm not wearing my gloves now, and the reason for that is I'm going to have to get dirty anyway, because I got to mess around a little bit with this wheel bearing grease. Okay, that should be good enough. I'll do that on the other side as well. Let me grab my air hose again. Sorry about kicking the bucket. Kick the bucket, you get that? Okay, now I got an old t-shirt out of my rag bag here. And let me see, I don't take a look at this, back at this and see if you can see what I'm even doing here. Let me kick that down a little bit. There we go. I'm just going to take some of this brake cleaner that I just went and got and spray it a little bit in here, and all that is acetone for the most part, but it'll let me get all the goober. You can see the goober that came out of there. It'll let me clean that a little bit. Okay, now we're going to take my trusty little hammer here, and we're going to make sure that this thing here is seated. And now we're going to Now we're going to get dirty. We're going to reach in here and grab a little bit of this grease, and we're going to bring it up here, and we're going to make sure that these ball bearings in here got plenty of grease all over them. I'm going to turn this thing around and do the same thing with the other side. Set this down, and there's the bearing itself. So we're going to make sure that's got plenty of grease. When I first started tearing the other side apart, you might have heard me say that I thought the bearing might be bad, and originally I thought it was, and then after I got looking closer I realized it was okay. So now we're just doing this, and we're going to put that back in there like that. Now we're going to try to get as much of this off of me as I can get off here and save it. If you see this that little piece there, that's the other part of the bearing. So we'll put as much grease on that as we can, get it off my fingers. My fingers don't do any good getting grease on the bearing well. Making sure there's plenty there. When I took this side apart the other day, this side was actually loose, alarmingly so, and the other side was actually too tight. So it's probably a good thing I did this. I probably should have done it previously. Now we got that. There, now that's back in place. Now we grab our rag here and try to get as much of that stuff off my hands as I can. This is about as clean as it's going to get for this brake job. I'm going to slide that thing back up into place. It's kind of heavy. You might hear me grunt a little bit. Looks like I might have tightened those brakes up a little bit too tight. This doesn't look like it quite wants to go, so I think I can even do it from here. I'll just let you run a little bit. I think my knee's in the way, but can't do it with that. Maybe I can do it with this. Can't do it with that. Maybe I can do it with this. Can't quite get that to lift onto there. I tried to guess on that brake adjustment and I got it a little bit off. Yeah, it's going to sit okay right there. I got to go get a different screwdriver. Once once more, make a trip to the toolbox. Let's see if I got you lined up right. Let me turn you a little bit there so you can see better. Some high clouds came in. It's pretty nice now. It's not quite so hot in the sunlight. Try to keep my knee out of your view here. The thing about this adjustment now is I get everything loosened up so it actually adjusts pretty easy. Cleaned it all up and lubricated it. Let's see if I can do the same thing on this side. Okay, let's see if this will slip on now. Just almost, not quite. Got it on here enough it's not going to fall on my foot. But try this again. Alright, let's sit her back down on the ground. And get to all this. Okay, let's try it again, see if we can slip this into place. Might have to cut that down a little bit so you don't have to watch all this. There we go, look at that. Just like we knew what we was doing. This thing tried to fall out on my foot, but I caught it. Okay, we got that up in place. Thing about this is grease, grease, and more grease. Our next job here is to Put the little washer on it. That doesn't have to be lubricated, so I can clean that up so I can see it. That just goes on just like that. And we got the nut. That thing does not have to be clean. Okay, I'll have to adjust this and snug it up and put a cotter key in there, but I'm not going to keep you around for that. And then I got to do the same thing on the other side, and so I don't reckon you really need to watch me do that either. So I'm going to shut you down for now, and I'll come back when I'm done and let you know how everything went. There you go, that wheel's back on. I had to wrestle with that brake a little bit. Won't make that mistake on the other side, but the tire's heavy and I got it in place, so I'll have to let it off the jack and then torque the wheel studs, but it's in place. All I got to do now is do the other one. So I think I'm gonna make a wrap on that one for tonight, and I'll go put that other wheel on. And this thing's been fighting me all afternoon, but I think we got it. We just got to take our time and wrestle with it a little bit. So as I always tell you, take care of each other, love each other, take care of yourself. It's a beautiful day here, and I'm going to be at Nolly's tomorrow. So my goal is to have this thing back on its wheels and running again by Tuesday, because it's supposed to get real cold Tuesday. It's supposed to drop about 25 degrees from what it is today. So I think I'm going to make it, and I'll keep fiddling on this other side, but unfortunately when I run the camera it seems like it takes 3 times as long to do anything. So I'm going to let you go for now, and just tell you as I always do, until I see you again, I'll just say peace out. You one more look at that door lettering.